Hi there, Steve Kaufman here, and today I want to talk about why I learn languages, and I want to use as an example Persian, which is what I'm learning right now. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, click on the bell for notifications. If you follow me on a podcast service, please leave a review. So, if any of you read my book, The Linguist, A Personal Guide to Language Learning, you will remember that I always get interested in the history, the culture, countries that influence other countries, how countries are an amalgamation of different influences and peoples, and that's been the history of the world, and that's what kind of motivates me to learn languages and learn about all these different cultures and so forth. Persian is no exception. I'm very lucky that I have a Persian tutor, collaborator in Iran, who has created tremendous content for me on the history of Iran, foods of Iran, has interviews with ordinary people in Iran. So I have a bit of a smattering of that background. But as with when we learn languages and we learn and forget words, things that I learn about the history of a country, I tend to forget them as well. But every time I forget them, something remains. And so my appreciation of the history does improve a little bit each time. But it gives me a basis from which to learn more things. And so right now, at Link, I am doing a series of 4 episodes of a podcast about Iranian identity, put out by this podcast service called epitome.ir or epitomebooks.ir. I'll leave a link to the podcast in the description box. It's all in Farsi and Persian, of course. And so I am just enjoying so much participating in this series of discussions, and the narrator quotes different books where the question of Iranian identity is discussed. So I have the sort of sensation that I am participating in a discussion amongst Iranians about their identity. And through that, I am exposed to aspects of their history, some of which is new to me, some of which I have already been exposed to. And so the whole experience to me is my reward. That's why I learn languages, to be able to do that kind of thing. And I've done it in Ukrainian when my Ukrainian tutor sent me material on Ukrainian history. I've done it in Polish when I went to this website and found audiobooks and ebooks about Polish history. These are the things that I'm interested in. Czech, the Tolki Česko Minulosti, about Czech history. That's what drives me to learn languages. But let's get back to Persian. And I also wanted to comment on Persian because someone asked me here on my YouTube channel, what has been my reaction to learning Persian? Well, first of all, there are a lot of Iranian immigrants in Vancouver. And just yesterday or the night before, we were at a restaurant. Lo and behold, family sitting beside us are recent immigrants. I don't know how recent, but from Iran. The Iranians respond so positively when you speak to them in their language. It's astounding. And they also immediately ask you, are you familiar with Persian poetry? And of course, because Persian poetry is very important to the Iranians, but it's too difficult for me. So I disappoint them when I say no. But very often too, they'll ask me if I speak Turkish, because 1 in 5 or 18 or whatever percent, 15% of Iranians are of Azeri Turk origin. So therein we begin to see that there's this historical connection between Turks and Persians or Iranians. Now, but the interesting thing, what I find so fascinating is in this series of episodes about Iranian identity, if we go back 2,500 years to the emperor, the empire of Cyrus, and I think the greatest extent of the Persian Empire was under Darius the Great. I don't remember because I forget it all, but the old Achaemenid, or however it's pronounced, Hahemanishion Empire was 2/3 non-Iranians. If we look at a map, it included, at various times Greece and maybe the northern part of India, and you had Turkic people there. And of course, originally you had the Elamites and the Akkadians, because ancient Persia included what is today Iraq. It included, the Fertile Crescent from which the Abrahamic religions came, eventually Islam, but initially Judaism and Christianity. So right off the bat, it was a multi-ethnic, multilingual empire. And so what was the identity at that point? Of course, people guess at it, but apparently Herodotus, the Greek historian, said that the people who were identified as Persian, Pars, or whatever term was used, they had certain advantages over non-Persians within that empire. So obviously there was a sense of Persian identity at that time. When Alexander the Great of Macedonia invaded, he tried to bring in Greeks and make Iran more Greek, which didn't really please the locals who preferred their Persian identity. So there was some kind of Persian identity. The Persians also had their own religion, the Zoroastrian religion, which was essentially the state religion, as near as we can tell. So there's this identity as part of the Achaemenid or Hahemanischian Empire, which included many ethnic groups. Cyrus, in his great constitution, was very, I wouldn't say magnanimous, but very tolerant of different religions and different ethnic groups. And maybe he had no choice because they outnumbered the Persians in his empire. So there was that. And then after Alexander the Great, the Greeks under, I think I might have said it, or it wasn't Alexander who tried to bring in Greeks and make Iran more Greek. It was Seleucus, Seleucus, or however it's pronounced, who basically, as the Alexander's empire was split, he ended up with Iran, basically. And he tried to make it more Greek, which didn't work. But after a few hundred years, there was once again an Iranian dynasty, an Iranian control of their country. And so there's now this, obviously there was a sense of identity as Iranians through the language, through their Zoroastrian religion, through a sense of where they lived, through identifying with the ruler. I don't know, they even had a flag. They had certain things that represented identity for them. And then passing through my forgetfulness, you had the what we call the Parthian Empire, I think, which goes under a different name in Persian, which I've forgotten. And then the Sasanian period, where Iran was fighting with Rome all the time, and eventually the Arab invasion, and Islam was introduced. So now we have Islam. So there's identity through language, identity through territory, identity through this Persian ethnicity, which for a long time was a minority group within the greater Persian Empire. And now we have identity through religion. And the religion was mostly Sunni. And then around the 10th, 11th century, we have a series of Turkish dynasties in Iran. And so again, I'm going from memory, but as I read it, I enjoy it and then I forget it. But so the Arabic language was perhaps more prestigious through religion, but eventually basically the education standards in Iran were higher than amongst the Arab conquerors. And so Persian had a pride of place in the administration and so forth. But then the Turks came in and they tended to speak Turkish in the court. And then at a certain point, perhaps coinciding with the Mongol invasions, there was a revival of the Farsi or Persian language. So there was, again, you can sense through all of that as this person quotes the different sources debating about, what represented Iranian identity and so forth, that there was a revival of the Persian language. And then with the Safavid dynasty, the Shia religion is established as the national religion. And so now we have an identity. So we have an Islamic identity, we have a Shia identity, as opposed to the Sunni Ottoman Empire. We have, of course, that Iranian identity. So we have this accumulation of different identities. And getting back to the poetry, which I always get asked about, the sort of one of the main periods of flowering of poetry in Iran was during the time that the Mongols, I think initially the Turks, again I'm going from memory, and then the Mongols, the Ilkhan's dynasties. And so there was this flowering of poetry, which focused to a large degree on, myths and traditions and the history of the great flowering of the Persian Empire back 2,500 years ago. So the Iranians have been imbued with this sense of their identity, which consists of all these different elements. And depending on which Iranian you speak to, he may identify, or she may identify more with the period prior, the greatness of the Persian Empire, or may identify more with Islam, and so forth. So and even today, as I mentioned earlier, there's this ethnic mixture in Iran. You have Azeri Turks, you have Turkmens, who are a small number, but were very influential initially in some of the dynasties that were established. You have Kurds, you have Arabs, and then you have various sort of nomad groups. So there's quite a variety of peoples within Iran. And so probably today, the identity is one of Iran as a nation, the country of Iran, with all of the ethnic minorities that they have. And in this series, it is pointed out that amongst the people in the Middle East, the Iranians have a much stronger sense of national identity. Are you proud of being an Iranian? And so a much higher percentage in Iran will say, yes, I am. Whereas in places like Jordan or Egypt, apparently, the identification is more with Islam and less with the country. So all of this is interesting. The fact that I'm able to read and listen to all of this information and kind of span the period from 2,500 years ago to today, try and picture Iraq when it was part of Iran or Persia and now and stuff, is to a large extent due to Sahra and her ability to create material for me and find stuff for me. I wish I could find someone to do the same for Arabic. Arabic as a whole, or Egypt or North Africa or the Levant, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and so forth. So because that to me is the fun of language learning, is exploring through language, history, culture, people. And so I'm very grateful to Sahra, and I enjoy doing this in Persian, and I will certainly be looking forward to doing it in Arabic and in other languages moving forward. So there you have it. I will leave you with a couple of videos on this issue of language and culture, and I'd be interested in your own reactions and how you deal with and to what extent you're attracted to the idea of learning about culture and history through language. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.